Hi, I'm back. Did you miss me? I was out there having fun with the freshmen. We had a ton of families come, which was totally cool. And I got a lot of Damani Ranch gear, so you new teachers, you really missed out if you didn't come to the freshman ice cream social. Okay, what is absent? And I'm not sure if I talked to you about this yet or not because I ran out. I went over my 15 minutes. So a student who's considered an in-person student is absent if they are not sitting in your classroom, okay? They cannot check in virtually. If they're not sitting in your classroom, they're marked absent. Your only virtual students you're going to have on your roster are going to be those students that are excluded for COVID, and those students will be absent if they do not message you on Teams during the class period. We want this defined in your syllabus so everybody understands it well. I'm going to power through these next slides, which are those attendance screen. We need to take attendance in the attendance list screen if we have virtual students on our roster, okay? You can take in person normally in a seating chart if you like. I'm just going real quick here, and if you guys have questions about how you actually mechanics of taking attendance, you can catch me in the library at 9 o'clock and then again at 10 o'clock on Friday. Okay. Seating chart, and then this is the one that says if you are taking attendance in your seating chart and you do have virtual learners, which will be down in that right hand corner, you have to go to that attendance list to take attendance for them if they're absent. Okay. And then daily contact is defined in one of the last slides. We'll go over what that daily contact is going to look like, the student messaging you on your Teams during the scheduled class period. That's what daily contact is going to look like, and that's how a kid in temporary distance learning will be marked present. Okay. There's a lot of different things that other schools might be doing, but we want to just have one thing to make it simple. We want to make sure that you guys aren't going back and checking and checking and checking to see if these kids have emailed you or messaged you or taken a peek at something. So, okay, this is our temporary distance learning policy. This policy is the policy that everybody in the school is going to follow. And the reason is it's going to be easier. There is a piece where the teacher needs to communicate with the parents about how a temporary distance learner is going to get their work. And so we're going to go ahead and just send this policy home when we send home the COVID exclusion letter. And so that'll be the communication with the parent for you. Also, we'd like you to include this attendance, this temporary distance attendance policy in your syllabus, and that way the parents will have already seen that. You can go ahead and post it on your Teams. I don't know if that's something you can do, post it on your Teams page so that the kids know what they need to do in case they forget if they're excluded. But they will get this piece of paper when we exclude them, and we can email it to them. So there are some responsibilities. Only kids that are excluded due to COVID are going to be on temporary distance learner. The teacher's responsibility will be to post those daily assignments and instructional materials on Teams. The student will access the assignments. That's their responsibility to access the assignments and instructional materials on Teams. The student's responsibility to get credit for attending school that day will be that they messaged the teacher during the class period via Teams. They have to message them on your classroom Teams page. If the student doesn't message, then during your class period, then you're going to consider that student absent. and you are going to go into that attendance list, and you are going to type HDED into the comments section and nothing else, just HDED. And then that overnight will turn that it doesn't happen right away. Overnight, it'll turn that absent, that HDED or HDCT into an absence. Okay? Um, the teacher's responsibility to include this policy in the syllabus, and the clinic will send this policy out with that exclusion letter, and that will count for you communicating with your parents. Okay? Next little slide here, temporary distance learner. It talks about who will be placed on temporary distance. Exclusion list. So we will have a daily exclusion list. Last year we kept that on the SharePoint, but we can't email that out every day. It's just if it's not in a spreadsheet, it's kind of hard to sort. So, but we can do that, and we will do that. When a student's placed on temporary distance learning, the clinic does email you guys to let them know that that student is TDL. The teacher will contact the student and parent to explain how temporary distance learning works, and where the access. You guys don't have to do that because we're going to do that for you with that temporary distance learning policy attached to the exclusion letter. And then the last one is make sure temporary distance learning students have an equivalent opportunity to in-person students. And that does sound very scary, but it's not as scary as it seems. They're just saying that the work and the instructional materials that you are posting for these kids are the same content that you are giving to the kids in your classroom. So what we don't want to happen is we don't want you're solving quadratics in your classroom, but you're giving them linear equations to solve, to do at home because you don't think they can do it without the lesson kind of thing. So they do have to have access to that curriculum that you are working with in the classroom. This talks about exclusion codes. The main thing is that when a kid is excluded either by the health department or us, they are considered present with that gray little exclusion code that you see in attendance. To mark that child absent, if they do not contact you through Teams during your class period, you will write HDED in that comment section. This is an example of the list that will go out, but ours we try to do on a spreadsheet so you guys can sort it. And then students returning from an exclusion back into in-person learning should always come with a note from the clinic. And so when a student, sorry, it's over. Okay. And so when a kid comes back from an exclusion to in-person learning, they need to have that note from the clinic. One reason they need to have that note, if a kid was excluded because there was a COVID case in their household, that exclusion can be extended quite a bit. And we always try to check in with the families in the health department and make sure we know where they are. But if they just try to come back to school, like you heard they were on a 10-day exclusion, you're expecting them back on the 16th, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes that'll push to, a 20-day extension depending on what's going on in the home. Okay. And please do not let any excluded kids in your class. With the whole COVID thing, really important, we have that seating chart on the first day. We're checking to make sure only the kids that are on your IC roster are in your classroom. And so I think contact tracing, this new variant seems to be a lot more contagious. Practically my whole extended family has it right now. So we really need to be diligent about calling the kids on the masks. And if kids are not following, if that mask keeps dropping, then you call 3000, we'll come up, we'll have masks, or we'll get them out of your class. Okay? So stay safe and thanks. Sorry the presentation was 25 minutes, but it's a lot of important stuff.